Okay, we're looking at problem number 1. Is finding a rational root. So what are the rational roots of 2x to the third minus x squared plus 2x plus 5 equal to 0? So the only possible rational roots have the form of the constant term, the factors of the constant term, and the constant term for this is 5, and over the factor of the leading coefficient. And the factor of the leading coefficient here is 2. So here, I've written it out on my whiteboard. Here is my terms. I have 2x cubed minus x squared plus 2x plus 5. So let's look at the constant term first. 5. So 5 I can have plus or minus 5. And let's look at the factors of 5. Well, there aren't any factors of 5 except for 1. Now let's look at my leading coefficient, which is 2. So the leading coefficient, which is 2, and the factors of the leading coefficient, which is, again, 1. And so I need to put these over each other again. So the constant term over the factors. So first we're going to go ahead and put those numbers there. So we know that we have plus or minus 1 because 1 over 1 is 1. And I can have plus or minus 5 over 1, which is just 5, so I'll put plus or minus 5. And then we'll do the other one. So we have 1 over 2, so that is plus or minus 1/2. And then we have 5 over 2, so we have plus or minus 5 over 2. So these are all the possible roots. And so what I need to do now is I need to check to see which one is an actual root. And I know it's a root is if I plug it into my original equation and it actually equals 0. So these are my x values that I'm going to plug in. So I'm going to plug all these values in for x. And I want to see if my y value, after I plug it in, it equals 0. So I have negative 1, positive 1, negative 5, positive 5, negative 1/2, positive 1/2, negative 5 over 2, and positive 5 over 2. And so they did the chart for us. And I'm going to cheat. I'm going to use a calculator. I don't want to do all this stuff by hand. And so I'm just plugging these values in for my x value. And I'm going to use this calculator here. It's an online free graphing calculator. It's at www.desmos.com. And as you see, I already have it plugged in. I have f of x equals 2x to the third minus x squared plus 2x plus 5. And I want to find those values. So I'm going to put my first value of negative 1. And as you see, when I plug negative 1 in, I get 0. So I know negative 1 is one of my possible, is an actual rational root, because when I plug it in, I get 0. So now let's plug in 1. It gives me 8, so that's not 1. Let's plug in 5. Gives me 240, that's definitely not 1. Let's plug in negative 5. Gives me negative 280, that's not 1. Let's plug in negative 1/2. Gives me 3.5, that's not 1. Let's plug in positive 1/2. Gives me 6, that's not 1. Let's plug in 5 over 2. Oops. Gives me 35, that's not 1. And then I'm going to plug in negative 5 over 2. And it gives me negative 37.5. And these are the same values that the book got. They left theirs in fraction form. But the only one that was 0 was at negative 1. So that means the only rational root is negative 1. X equals negative 1. So let's do the got it problem now. So let's go here. I'm going to erase this, clean this board. And so we have 3x to the third plus 7x squared plus 6x minus 8. Okay, so I know that first I'm going to look at my constant term. So my constant term, I have plus or minus 8. My factors of 8 are plus or minus 4, plus or minus 2, and plus or minus 1. So these are the numbers that I can break out of the 8. Now let's look at my coefficient of my leading term, which is 3. So that's plus or minus 3 and plus or minus 1. And so I already know all of these terms, so the 8, 4, 2, and 1, because I can put each one of those over 1. And so those are all terms that I'm going to be using. So let's go ahead and write that. So my possible numbers are plus or minus 1, plus or minus 2, plus or minus 4 plus or minus 8. So now let's see what our fractions are. So we'll just put those numbers over our fractions. So we have plus or minus, we'll just start here, 8 over 3, plus or minus 4 over 3, plus or minus 2 over 3, and plus or minus 1 over 3. So these are all the possible rational roots. It's a lot of them, a lot of calculation. I don't want to do it, so I'm just going to put it in my calculator again. Just going to delete this stuff that I've already done. Too much calculating for me, and I can just use technology. So we have 3x to the third plus 7x squared plus 6x minus 8. Okay, so we'll do f of, let's look back at my terms. Let's do -1 and +1. So we have -1, not 1, because it's equal to 10, not 0. When I plug in 1, it doesn't work. Let's do 2. So let's plug in -2. Didn't work. Let's plug in +2. Didn't work. Let's plug in 4. Didn't work. Let's plug in -4. Didn't work. Let's plug in -8. Didn't work. Let's plug in +8. Oops. Still didn't work. Let's see, what are my other terms? So I have 8 over 3. Let's plug in 8 over 3. F of -8 divided by 3. Didn't work. Let's plug in +8 divided by 3. Still didn't work. Let's see, what's another one that we had? 4 over 3. Let's plug in 4 over 3. Doesn't work. Let's plug in -4. Still doesn't work. Let's plug in -2 over 3. Doesn't work. Let's plug in +2 over 3. Oh, there's one, finally. So we found one. 2 over 3, it equals 0. Yay. Let's plug in the last 2. -1 over 3. That doesn't work. And f of 1 divided by 3 doesn't work. So the only one that works is 2 over 3. So the only rational root that we found for 3x cubed plus 7x squared plus 6x minus 8 is 2 over 3. I hope that this helps.